Okay, before you get the wheel off, you have to first get off this this shield. I don't see any spiders back in there, so I'm not too afraid of going at that. Most of these look like screws with plastic clips. Okay, it took me an hour to get off that splash shield. A lot longer than I thought, because these plastic clips, plastic screws, just about every single one of them was stripped. I only got one out because there's no pressure on them anymore. After a while they get brittle, and I had to rip some of them out. But the one hardest one was all the way in the back up here by the wheel, and that one pokes out right there. So it was actually a lot easier than I thought. I wrestled with that one for about 15 minutes. Just take a pair of pliers or something and push on it, and it pushes right through from the top. A lot of the other ones you can't do that. A lot of you guys have probably never seen what's back there, so I figured I might as well document the best I can. Now, this little piece is really interesting. This is a molded rubber piece, and I'm not exactly sure what that's for. I think that's just for holding the shape of the lower bumper a little bit better. So over time the sun doesn't warp this into some funky shape. This kind of holds it in place. So that was kind of neat. And it goes over to a bracket over there. So if you're going to run a body kit or something, you could use this attachment. So it's a neat idea for you guys that want to fabricate your own stuff. Because this took me so long today, I think I'm just going to call it a day. I ran out of light. I started too late. That was really my fault, and I didn't think the shield was going to take all that long. If I start now with the wheel, try and get the wheel off, then go through the lower shield and the timing cover and all that junk, I will run out of light. And I don't want to run out of light right as I'm getting the meat of the details there. So I'll start on it tomorrow, first thing tomorrow morning hopefully, and we'll pick up from there. Okay, before we can jack up the car, we've got to get the wheel off so that we can get to the shield under there. I've already taken off this outer shield, but there's another one back there in front of the timing cover. Make sure you got your wheel locked if you need your wheel lock. Make sure your parking brake is enabled. You got your emergency brake pulled. You can get down under here a little bit back, so that way you can put your jack stand up front. You just want to take the wheels off the ground a little bit, just so that you can get them off. That should be good. First you might have to jack it up enough so that your jack stand can fit under it. Say about right there, right under the pinch weld. And then slowly let your jack down on top of it. There you go. Now as you're taking these last two off, when you take it off, you take it off in a crisscross pattern. Didn't exactly do that because some of them were really rusted shut, so just do the best that you can. I can tell my screws are really rusted here, my bolts. So you got to push your wheel in with your hand while you do this, otherwise it'll put pressure on the bolts. There you go. No brown windows under the tire, so feeling good about that. Move my jack stand out of the way. Slide the tire underneath the jack, or underneath the car where the pinch weld is, right behind the jack. And what's next? Next thing that has to come off is this lower shield that's covering your crank pulley, so we'll just call that your crank pulley shield. Okay, got a bolt there for the shield, one there, one there. But what I didn't realize was this entire shield is connected to the splash shield underneath. It's all one piece. So that entire shield has to come off. The shield is also connected with a bolt here. Actually, that's a screw. So you need a screwdriver for that. So 10mm there, and there's one back over there. Okay, after you remove the splash shield, now you have access to your crank pulley. I'm pretty sure that entire oil pan gasket is busted. It needs to be replaced, so I'm leaking oil through there. And I haven't even run the car in a long time, but you can still kind of see the spot where it was dripping, and it hasn't even moved. There's one of your screws for your pulley puller. Cool name. You have to get one in there, and then there should be another one up above there. It's a pretty windy day out here, so ignore the wind. In order to get the power steering pulley off, there's a bolt down there. You can barely see the head of it, but it is a pretty good sized bolt. And there's only room enough in there to fit a wrench. There's no room for a ratchet or a breaker bar, but you do need the torque of a breaker bar, which means you're going to be pulling on that wrench for all you're worth. And you can do it, you can break it. And once you break it, then give it a couple turns, loosen it up, and then you come up to this red one, which I actually spray printed red, so it kind of works out. And you loosen that counterclockwise, and that will make that bolt there travel backwards, and that will loosen the entire assembly. And you can, and then just rip the belt right off of that, and that goes down to the crank and also your AC clutch, and you can just take that right off. And installation would be the reverse of that. And the alternator it's a similar way, but we'll get to that in a second. And unfortunately my battery died, so I wasn't able to videotape actually getting the power steering pump off, but that took me a long time. And these two bolts right here were a pain in the butt because there's no room between here and the firewall, or well, the side of the body I guess, to get a ratchet or any kind of wrench in this way. I did end up using a ratchet with a U-joint on it. It took me about an hour and a half, turning extremely slowly. Obviously it took me an hour and a half, and the bolts are only like, you know, yay long. It took me an hour and a half to get those off that way. I'm sure there's an easier way, but I wanted to try and do it all from the top. Like I've said in previous videos, I want to try and get as much as I can from the top just to prove that it can be done from the top. Not all of this is going to be able to be done from the top, but I'm hoping a majority of it, just to show that it can be done. Not only that, I just don't like getting under the car. In order to move the power steering pump out of the way, a lot of guys will wire it up and then pull it back, but I think you can get away with just setting it off to the side a little bit. As long as it's disconnected down there and off the top of the head, you should be good. You don't have to fully disconnect it because I believe it's hooked into the water pump, and the water pump's not attached to the head, but this part is attached to the head. So, but you can't get this off unless you get that off, so you really do have to pull the whole thing off, unfortunately. In the Real Fixes Real Fast video, they take off the engine mount first, raise the engine up, that way he can get to the bolt, which is all nice and good and probably the right way to do it, but I'm obviously not going to follow that procedure. I'm going to go at each pump individually and then save this for last because this is sitting out front, and I'm going to have to put it back down on the wheels anyway, and I don't want to leave this on a jack for very long, so it's kind of what I'm thinking. So unlike the power steering pump, this side has plenty of room to fit a ratchet in. So you just fit a ratchet and you can undo that bolt, and then once you get that one off, then you go at this bolt on the back. Unlike the power steering, the alternator, you have to wind this screw much farther. I'd say it probably needs about twice as much travel in order to loosen up the belt. See, now you can, I don't think that's a good angle. So now you can manipulate the alternator back and forth. And that should be loose enough. Now, I've already unbuttoned the bottom bolt, so as soon as I take off the belt, the alternator will probably drop through, because right now the belt is the only thing holding that alternator on, I think. So, we shift the alternator towards the front of the car as far as you can. And now you've got plenty of excess to work with to get that belt off. And it's still around the crank down there, so let's see if it drops through. Oh yeah. I think it's time for a new belt. What do you think, fellas? Now, I remember when I was looking at this from underneath, there were some portions of it that I could see straight through. Now this belt says FS, so I'm pretty sure that's an OEM belt. Never been replaced. 15 years. That's why. That is why. "15 years running like that? Come on, give it up." That's pretty awesome. Okay, so I already have new belts for that. Now that I have the belts off, I will take out my alternator, or attempt to. I don't think I can do it with one hand. Oh, I have to take this bolt off the bracket. So this bolt right here is still holding the alternator on, which is fine with me. But that bottom pivot bolt is now, I removed that. So, lesson learned, you don't have to remove the bottom pivot bolt. You only have to loosen this up by a lot. Loosen this so that you got some play here. It should go have some play, and you can see the silver thread sealant or NICs. That's where it started, so that's how much I had to go back, and from that we get this. And as soon as you go up with the alternator, you've got plenty of room to take that belt off, and you can do that from the top. So both belts removed from the top. Done.